Welcome to another breaking episode of CCN Coastal Conservative News. At the time of this recording, just 5 hours ago, something dramatic happened in the state of Florida that is going to have a shockwave to the entire nation, if not the world. And to talk with me about it, I'm happy to have health freedom advocate Susan Sweetin with me here today. Susan, what happened today?
I'm so excited and honored to say I've moved to the state of Florida where freedom is actually leading. Dr. Ladapo, alongside of our governor, DeSantis, has announced that they will be removing all the mandates to the vaccinations.
Wow. I mean, just to hear you say that out loud, again, all mandates to all vaccinations. So why is this such a shift? People have said, in fact, you said, this is akin to the 1986 event when a lot of these problems started. Why is this at that same level?
Well, in the world where we live in and what we just came out of, right, COVID, this is the shockwave and the breaking of the old guard to the freedom movement that has been sweeping the nation and sweeping the globe. From the truckers in Canada to the farmers in the Netherlands. We've seen people take to the streets to hold their ground and hold on to their inalienable rights. And it's a notice and a seismic shift to the organizations like the AAP that just recently broke with the CDC and came out with their own vaccination schedule. And my question was, if these two large institutions can't agree on what the vaccination policies should be for children, then there shouldn't be a mandate. And here we are today, Florida leading the way into the goalpost, into that end zone, making the score that Idaho couldn't do. And they were the first to have that bill that landed on the governor's desk, and he just didn't have the courage to stand forth and stand strong. And anything that pierces the skin should be with consent and not a mandate.
So this obviously, for those of you who may not have kids in school, this is a massive change for those parents that have wanted to keep their kids not vaccinated for a variety of reasons. It increases the rights of parents against the medical establishment who have been wanting to mandate this. Let's talk about how this happened, because this just didn't happen randomly. You actually know something about how today's announcement occurred. So you want to fill us in to the extent you can?
Yeah, to the extent that I can. I am proud to say that in my professional capacities, I work inside of NVIC, and Barbara LaFisher has been leading the charge on this issue. Her slogan is "No forced vaccination, not in America." So having her as my mentor has led me into conversations that I was happy to have recently with the team inside of the Florida Health Department, specifically Dr. Ladapo. And I've kept hearing over the past few weeks regarding the GRACE Act and different EOs that were being put forward that it's okay as long as there's a carve out, as long as there's an exemption. And I was hearing from very well-respected medical freedom advocates as well that the world was just not ready for no mandates. And I am so happy to say that they were wrong and that we had a moment of clarity here in Florida, and things had to change and shift before we could get here, right? This didn't happen overnight. This was many people educating on many levels, mothers making conversations with their legislators, but in all transparency, it takes the truth and vindication of the Surgeon General to look at the science, a lawyer, the governor, to understand what a mandate means, and the work being done at the federal level, right? Paul Offit getting fired yesterday from the FDA, the EUA being repealed or sunset, the shakeup at the CDC, and I know Bobby Kennedy is right now sitting behind an interrogation, a hearing, but we'll call it what it is. So all of those things, those dominoes had to lead up to who's going to be the bravest of the bunch. And I'm so proud that it was Florida, and I'm so honored to say it was a friend and a hero, Dr. Ladapo, for doing that.
So for those of you who want to take a little bit of a deeper dive, you heard a couple of terms that we may not be familiar with. So if you could break this down, NVIC, what is that? Carve out, what's that? Kind of help the folks understand that.
Right, so NVIC is the National Vaccine Information Center. It's nvic.org. They were the only, and still the only, organization deplatformed during 2020 from the CCDH, another word salad or ABC organization that was targeting those with misinformation regarding vaccinations. So NVIC has been speaking out on this issue. Barbara and Kathy and the whole team there, Dawn and Teresa, they have been studying these vaccination laws for over 43 years.
Wow.
And they're the only organization that studies all of them across all 50 states, right? So Dawn and her team just do phenomenal work watching those pieces of legislation. That education has transcended into what we now know of as exemption rules and legislation. So the reason I left the New Jersey, very blue state of New Jersey, was because our exemption, or a carve-out, was up for grabs. And
by carve-out, you mean?
Right, so I'm going to get into that. So what many people may have seen hit the news wires 2 weeks ago, I think it is now, maybe 3, that the American Association of Pediatrics came out and said there should be no exemptions / carve-outs. What does that mean, exemptions? Well, in 46 states, there are exemptions to vaccinations to attend schools. That is either a religious exemption or a conscientious exemption. So that's the carve-out. And what we are seeing is advocates in their best state of mind thinking that we're still in 2019, that we should be legislating with the idea as long as there's a carve-out, as long as there's an exemption. Make sure that we can take a religious exemption. Well, we know of one whistleblower out in California, out of the military, that stood up and said, I'm not taking a religious exemption because he was agnostic. And
he did not want, and he was opting out of
he was opting out of the COVID vax, but he didn't want to use that in his military he could have thrown that paper in there. And then we have these different pieces of legislation that are trying to move forward saying, if there's a carve-out, it's okay. But in reality, what Barbara put out, just a week ago, is that there is no such thing as a medical exemption, really. And I actually just got off the phone with a very dear friend of mine up in Long Island that's written exemptions, and he has said, of the handful that have been accepted in public schools, a medical exemption, a handful have been declined. Children's Health Defense just came out with a big win that they had for a mother that decided not to vaccinate her child on one vaccine, was a previous giving her vaccinations, got a medical exemption to it by, I think it was a multitude of 3 or 4 doctors. And the public school said, no, you still can't come. We don't believe that medical exemption.
Wow, wow. So these exemptions really have been an area of debate. They haven't really protected citizens in the way they were designed. And now going back to the seismic shift in Florida, which is so phenomenal because there have been so many forces, organizations, governmental and private, that have advocated for required vaccinations. And now an entire state, not just any state,
the Freedom State
of Florida, the governor and the Surgeon General has now gone on record saying mandates are off the table. Wow. So what does that mean going forward? What do you think this is going to be? Are they going to be lawsuits? Are they going to accept this? Or
well, the Farmers Cartel doesn't, take this position lightly. This is what they were worried about. This is why the AAP, American Association of Pediatrics, came out a couple weeks ago saying, we need to get rid of all exemptions and just make it mandatory, because they were worried who was going to lead the charge on the first state to fall and say, whatever pierces my skin requires consent. And you should not hold hostage my right to go to school, my right to travel, my right to work, my right to bank. Look at what happened in Canada, those truckers. So we are leading the charge. What do I think is going to happen? It already happened. I mean, the Wall Street Journal, within 20 minutes, dripping with, innuendos and the measles, we're all going to die in Florida. Here we are again, like it's COVID 2020. I think that what's going to happen is I would hope, and I'm working towards that with the Freedom Health Task Force, is to embolden the next state that's ready to join us. It's time to link arms. It's time to show what state sovereignty looks like. Title 10. We have the ability to stand strong against the federal overreach that was trying to be attempted on us during COVID and in the next round of whatever disease X, Marburg, camel, blah, whatever. It is time to say, I have a choice of what goes into my body and when it goes into my child's body when it comes to medical risk taking.
So if you're watching this, a couple of things we want you to do. First, on all your social media, do a shout out to Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo, Governor DeSantis. Why? I'll tell you why. The pharmaceutical companies have got so much money. They are, to say that they are upset about this decision would be an understatement. So they are going to move their massive capability to do everything to compromise what Florida is attempting to do. And like Susan just mentioned, the Wall Street Journal has already taken the lead. They are doing the same propaganda that they did during COVID. Remember during COVID how the entire nation was predicting massive death rates in the state of Florida because of Florida stand? And now we are actually, it is now clear that all of those reports are inaccurate, were inaccurate. So same type of thing is going to come up. That's the first thing. Second thing, you need to find out about this NVIC organization. Say the website name again.
NVIC.org, and NVICadvocacy.org, where you can get alerts about this type of information regarding your state if you're out of Florida. And then ThyProtector.org. Join the Freedom Health Task Force if you're out of Florida. And if you're in Florida, now is the time to reach out to your representative, your local official, and let them know that you support and stand behind removing the mandates in Florida. So as we move towards legislation or an executive order, which we all don't love, but if we move towards that and they hear from their constituents that you are on board, if you want a vaccination, you have every right to go get one. But if you don't want a vaccination, this is the time to stand strong, stand up, and be loud, because this is the turning point in America.
There's an organization here in Sarasota that's been so active on this, actually two. One is called the Hollow 2A, led here in Sarasota, and then the clinic, the We the People Clinic. And at the We the People Clinic, there is this sign, and the sign says, if a vaccine works, why are you getting so worked up about those people who aren't vaccinated? If a vaccine works, it should protect you against any and all threats. That's how it's been pitched. So,
well, let's talk about that really quick.
Oh, okay.
If you are vaccine injured, We the People Health and Wellness Center in Venice, so We the People Health and Wellness Center in Venice is able to support you through that. So I would definitely say come through. It's been a huge resource for my son and my family who's vaccine injured to help us heal. As we look forward to, being in this fight for much longer, we need places like this that are standing up and standing out inside of the broken healthcare model.
Google We the People Health and Wellness in Venice, Florida. Susan, thank you for so many things. First, for doing all of the work. You only touched on the tip of the iceberg of what you actually have done towards making this happen, but that was your choice to say what you could say. But thank you for all of the work that you've done that you didn't even mention here. Thank you to Dr. Joseph Ladapo, to Governor DeSantis. This, my friends, is a seismic shift.